करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। May Brahman protect us. May it nourish us. May we work in harmony with great vigor. May our study be illuminating. May we not cherish ill feeling towards each other. Om, peace, peace, peace.
The Bengali devotional song. O Mother, you come to this earth to remove the suffering of mankind. You came as Radha to spread the message of love. You came as companion of Ramakrishna to remove the suffering of mankind, who got refuge and peace on your lap as mother. I used to wander aimlessly. You said there is no fear. You destroy the mirage of Maya and let there be light in everybody's heart. O Mother, you come again and again for suffering mankind. Ashile janone ashile abar horite dhara পাপের ভার। আসিলে জননী আসিলে আবার হরিতে ধরা পাপের ভার। চূড়াতে দগ্ধ হৃদয়ের জ্বালা মোছাতে সবার নয়ন ধার। চূড়াতে দগ্ধ হৃদয়ের জ্বালা মোছাতে সবার নয়ন ধার। আসিলে জননী আসিলে আবার যুগে যুগে মাগো আসিয়া ধরায় কত না যাতনা সহিতে ছোহায়। যুগে যুগে মাগো আসিয়া ধরায় কত না যাতনা সহিতে ছোহায়। পরাণ মোদের পাষাণের প্রায়, পরাণ মোদের পাষাণের প্রায়। পাশরি ধর্ম তবু বারে বার, শরী ধর্ম তবু বারে বার। আসিলে জননী আসিলে আবার সহন মূরতি রূপে রাম সনে অচলা ভগতি শিখালে ভুবনে। সহন মূরতি রূপে রাম সনে অচলা ভগতি শিখালে ভুবনে। রাধা রূপে পুন দিলে দর্শন, রাধা রূপে পুন দিলে দর্শন। প্রেমের মহিমা করিতে প্রচার, প্রেমের মহিমা করিতে প্রচার। আসিলে জননী আসিলে আবার হরিতে ধরা পাপের ভার। রাম কৃষ্ণ লীলা করিতে পুরাণ, মা আসিলে জননী আসিলে আবার দিশে হারা হয়ে ভ্রমিতাম ভয় দিলে মা অভয় আপনি আসে দিশে হারা হয়ে ভ্রমিতাম ভয় দিলে মা অভয় আপনি আসে মায়া মরিচিকা দাও মা ঘুচায় মায়া মরিচিকা দাও মা ঘুচায় প্রকাশ অবশ্য হৃদয়ে সবার প্রকাশ অবশ্য হৃদয়ে সবার আসিলে জননী আসিলে আবার হরিতে ধরা পাপের ভার আসিলে জননী আসিলে আবার।
I'm reading from the book Sri Sharada Devi and Her Divine Play by Swami Chetanananda. People usually seek a role model to guide and shape their lives. We enjoy seeing a person who practices what he or she preaches. We are not perfect, but we want perfection in others. Sharada Devi was a perfect role model in her various relationships as daughter, sister, wife, and mother, as well as householder and nun. From the Hindu point of view, the culmination of womanhood is being a mother. As a mother, a woman commands the highest respect in the family because of her unselfish love and self-sacrificing service. Moreover, she is regarded as a veritable goddess. She is the embodiment of the motherhood of God. Children are usually freer with their mother than with their father. They never hesitate to make demands upon her. According to a Bengali proverb, there may be a bad child, but never a bad mother. Only a jeweler knows the value of a gem. We really don't know the true nature of Holy Mother, although we hear about her greatness from the words of Sri Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, and some other close disciples of the Master and Holy Mother. Sri Ramakrishna said of Holy Mother, Sharada is an incarnation of Saraswati, the goddess of learning. She was born to bestow knowledge on others. She has hidden her physical beauty, lest people look upon her with impure eyes and thus commit sin. In 1894, Swami Vivekananda wrote from America to Swami Shivananda, "You have not yet realized how precious Holy Mother is. People will not understand her now, but they will gradually. Brother, there will be no salvation of the world without the help of the divine power. Why is it that our country is the weakest and most backward of all countries? Because Shakti is held in dishonor there. Holy Mother has been born to revive this wonderful Shakti in India, and making her the nucleus, once more will Gargis and Maitreyis be born into the world. Without the grace of Shakti, nothing will be accomplished. What do I find in America and Europe? The worship of Shakti, the worship of power. Yet they worship her ignorantly through sense gratification. Imagine then what a lot of good they will achieve when they worship her with purity, looking upon her as their mother. Once a woman devotee asked Holy Mother, Mother, why can't we comprehend that you are the Divine Mother? Holy Mother replied, how can everyone recognize divinity, my child? There was a big diamond lying at a bathing ghat. Considering it to be an ordinary stone, people rubbed their feet against it to smoothen their soles. One day, a jeweler came there and immediately recognized it as a large and precious diamond. In fact, the master was God. He had assumed a human form to mitigate the sufferings of humanity. He came to this world incognito, like a king who visits the city in disguise. I am Bhagavati, the goddess. Here is it.
Now is our time for meditation. Welcome to the Sunday service of the Vedanta Society of Toronto. Today's topic is right of women for spirituality. It seems, what is this topic? Why there should be any subject to discuss? Everyone has the right for spirituality. Women has right for everything that any human being can do. Women are human beings as equal as men. So they have full right for spirituality as men have. They can be householder, they can realize God, they can become nun, they can renounce the world. They have full right to be spiritual. Why this right of spirituality question comes, it's quite well known. But this is known now, how much struggle had to be done to achieve this. What was the condition earlier in the whole world, not only in India? Women were so much deprived of their rights as equality with all humanity. So this question, that's why makes relevant looking at in the history in the past. So earlier it was thought that in some traditions that men have the right to renounce the world. If you read the medieval thing, if you read even Shankaracharya, you will find having a human body, in that to a male body, in that to a Brahmin, being born in a Brahmin is a great gift of God, because by that you can realize God easily, you can practice spirituality at ultimate to the maximum. Otherwise it will be obstacles, a lot of obstacles will be there. So equally it is said in other castes or in other professions, in or other bodies, so there might be difficulty in realizing in the path to seek enlightenment. That was the idea during even Buddha's time, even during Shankara's time, even after Buddha. So it was, of course, it was not in our particularly civilized world as the Aryan world, which lived in the teachings of Vedas. It was not there. All had equal right. There were great seers in Vedas. If we read, there are many saints, many Vishwamitra and Vasishtha and Yajnavalkya, and there are so many Aruni, and there are so many men, rishis. They were not necessarily monks, but they were rishis who had the vision of the truth through in their meditation, in their highest point of their spiritual awareness. Mostly it is all described about the men, but it is not only men's domain, that spiritual teaching or this having the rishihood was not only confined to only men. In Vedas are described as many as 27 women rishis that is there. Swami Kripamayananda recent talk you might have heard about the Chandi, about the spirituality of Chandi, about the rishi walk, how she identified herself with the Supreme and said, I am the one that exists, I am the Indra, I am Varuna, I am Mitra. So the height any man could reach, woman also could reach, and they have reached. That is their description in the Vedas. So later on, during medieval time, during time of Shankara and after that, it so happened, even before the Muslim invasion, there was little that was happening. Somehow, this Shankara's time, he thought that women's life is more delicate and maybe she cannot bear the hardship of renouncing the world and moving in the villages and doing that hard tapasya. That's why Shankara had that opinion according to the prevailing situation. Shankara never discriminated between gender, but according to the situation prevalent during that time, he had the opinion that men who had born in that type of family where the religious practice was done have more opportunity and a more easier path to practice total religion, giving up everything. So that's what he writes in Viveka Chudamani that way. Otherwise, Shankara had the highest regard for women. His deity of one of the ashrams he found was Sarada, Mother, Divine Mother. He had wonderful praise for the Divine Mother because he was a man of realization and he knows that there is Atman is equal in all, whether men or women, whatever body, whether belonging to any caste. And in his life itself, Shankara had seen that how not only the people born in the higher caste had reached the highest knowledge, even the Pariyas, even the Chandalas, they had the highest knowledge that Shankara saw in his own life, in his own experience. And there have been many stories in Mahabharata, how Vyadha, how a common householder had reached the highest religious experience. So that Shankaracharya was aware, but his saying is that way we have to see instead of criticizing Shankara. In Vedic times, there were 27 women seer or rishis compared to any other men rishis. They were as great as any other men rishis. One of them is Ghosha, whose verses are inscribed in the Vedas, part of the Vedas, and she has 14 verses in praise of Ashwins. She didn't go for renunciation or anything, but her vision is comprised in the Vedas, Ghosha. There is another Lopamudra, his wife of Rishi Agastya, And it is mentioned in Rig Veda, her verses are mentioned in Rig Veda, how he had the right, how great would be she that her name and also her this mantras are expressed and written in the part, become the part of Rig Veda. So like that was in the Vedic period, and there were rituals and there were prayers for having healthy life or happy life. That was the karma kanda of Vedas. In that also there are rishis, women rishis are mentioned there, like Ghosha and Lopamudra. What about Upanishadic time, later time, the Jnana Kanda, when there is a lot about intellectual power to really penetrate into, through the varieties of this Maya into the reality of Brahman. Are there rishis there? There are many rishis. One is the Vag, just I referred to now to you. Another is Maitreyi. Maitreyi was the wife of Yajnavalkya, one of the wives, he had two wives. So Yajnavalkya was decided after a long time to retire, to take the Vanaprastha. And for that he had to, whatever property he had, he wanted to divide it into two wives. Into two wives, one of whom was Maitreyi. So when he asked Maitreyi, please take whatever I have, half of that, and enjoy the world, I now go to Vanaprastha. Maitreyi then, instead of accepting whatever he was giving, it didn't become obstacle in the path of Yajnavalkya's pursuit to renounce the world to become a Vanaprasthi, but he said, will this wealth that you are bequeathing, you are giving to me, will give me immortality? That type of idea. Goal is not the wealth. Goal of life is not the enjoyment. Goal of life is to attain immortality, to attain emancipation, to attain freedom. That was very well in the wife of Yajnavalkya. She is also a rishi, mentioned in the Upanishad. And she asked, and Yajnavalkya says, no, it will not give you immortality, but it will give you comfortable life. You can live a life. Then what? Maitreyi replies, Enaham amritasyam tenaham kena kuryam. That which cannot give me immortality, which cannot give me freedom, what will I do with that? That is useless for me. I want the supreme good. I want immortality. I want liberation. That type of idea women had as the men had. So there was great saint Maitreyi. There is another saint mentioned in the Upanishad among those 27. One is Gargi. Gargi was the daughter of sage Vachaknu. So Vachaknu's daughter, that's why she was also called Vachaknavi, daughter of Vachaknu, Rishi Vachaknu. And she was held as equal to all the rishis. When Yajnavalkya, the debate was thrown about to know the nature of the truth, there were other people discussing and debating with Yajnavalkya. Then came Vachaknavi Gargi, daughter of Gargi, the daughter of Vachaknu, and she asked some such subtle questions that is not known to Yajnavalkya. So Yajnavalkya replied that very nicely. What is it that is beyond the sky and above below the earth, and yet is the source of this earth and the sky? What is that? Like that type of subtle question, Vachaknu could answer, debate, question, that type of equal treatment with women was there. In the Vedas, when these rishis are being described, when this was the case, when Gargi asked this question, it's not even mentioned that Gargi, a woman, asked, because there was no man and woman, they were all treated equal. Gargi, a rishi Gargi, Vachaknavi, the Brahmavadini, that was the term in the Upanishad. Knowers of Brahman, Brahmavadini, who is to know, who had known the Brahman and could talk about Brahman. Brahmavadini means that, who could discuss about the Brahman. That great saint and seer Gargi put this question forth to Yajnavalkya. Like that thing was there, always equality. So the question arising right of women for spirituality itself is not that relevant. Women has right for everything. Who will give them right? They themselves have the right. By their own right, they have the right for everything that a human, any other gender can have, any other man can have. So women's right is unquestionable for anything, and so is for spirituality. There have been great spiritual persons, though later on in the medieval India, through aggression and dominion by other races, they had to be protected, and there were many of their rights had to be not given, the freedom was not given just for their protection. But even in those days of turmoil, there have been great women saints that in India, all over India. In Bengal we have Khana. That was such a great person, like Thiruvalluvar of Tamil Nadu, giving the moral and ethical dictums to the society, which is accepted even today. Khana sayings are common in Bengal. Like that, there was a great saint called Lal Ded in Kashmir in 14th century. You see, 14th century always, India was already under the dominion of foreign rule. So that time Lal Ded was such a great saint and devotee of Shiva that she didn't like the rituals much. Her favorite subject was spirituality and about the Jnana Yoga. No rituals but meditation on the truth. And that she describes, and still she is regarded as a great saint and accepted by both Muslims and Hindus alike. And she herself was a person of renunciation, and so much respect Lal Ded, the woman, had in Kashmir. Mirabai, we all know, 16th century saint of Rajasthan. She was a married woman, but her love to Krishna, her love for spirituality was so great that nothing could come in between that. When she was married as a queen, she used to worship Krishna. She loved Krishna as her husband. After her husband died, then she totally, fully gave up herself to Krishna, and then other people thought, and then started meeting with the saints and discussing with them, singing the songs of Krishna, dancing in the name of Krishna. And when people complained to her what will happen to the prestige of our king and our royal family, she denied everything in the name, for the sake of religion. She was so brave in her love for God that she could renounce all blames or all things that may come to her. She renounced her princely princessness or queendom, and then she became a great saint, and she used to travel and compose so many beautiful devotional songs from 16th century, still in 19th, 21st century, after 600 years. They are so live as a devotional, arousing devotion in the hearts of people, of all people, the love of Krishna, love of God. And those she loved Krishna, mere to giridhara Gopal dusara no koi. My person, my God is Krishna, no one else. But when one reaches to that height, it is not only Krishna remains. It is Payo ji maine Rama Ratana Dhana Payo. She praises Rama in other places. So for them, when one reaches that height, it is not the Krishna is not the only that person. Krishna is Supreme God who is present who manifests as all divinities. Whole universe become Krishna for those people. So they say that yatra yatra netra pade tatra tatra Krishna is pure. Wherever you look, that becomes Krishna. That becomes associated with Krishna. Isha vasyam idam sarvam. Whatever is there is all covered with Isha, with God. When like saint and realized soul and devotee like Mirabai, for her everything is Krishna. So Krishna, they are not dogmatic, fanatic, but they say Giridhara Gopala means God, the supreme being, the supreme reality. Call it Brahman, call it Shiva, call it Rama. Mirabai will call it Krishna. Only the name is different, but the idea is same. So that great saint of Rajasthan in 16th century, Mirabai. Once Mirabai came to Vrindavan and wanted to see Rupa Goswami there. And Rupa Goswami said, I don't meet any women. Then she sent a note, oh, in Vrindavan I thought there is only one man, but I find there is another man, only one man is Krishna. And others are all followers and devotees of Krishna. Women means like the devotees of Krishna. That is how the sense of Pati means that. Pati is Lord. Pati is not only husband. Pati means Lord, whom we adore, whom we serve, whom we love. That's called Pati. So I thought only one person is Pati, only one person is man in Krishna, in Vrindavan. I see there is another person claiming himself to be man in Vrindavan. And this was such a great message for Rupa Goswami. He came and met Mirabai. He changed his tradition of not meeting women. Mirabai was not a woman, devotee. Sri Ramakrishna said, devotee has no caste. And also it is true, devotee has no gender. Devotee means they are above gender, above casteism, above anything. They are the devotees of God. They are close to God. They are very close to God. God reveals through them in their everything that they do and speak. So you cannot confine them to any place, or like Mirabai, though was a queen of Rajasthan. She is all over India and all over the world. Whoever listens to her, Mirabai feels to be our own person, a devotee of God, devotee of Krishna. That's what the feeling is. So devotee goes beyond this local distinction of gender and caste and place of origin and all that. Devotee means accepted to whole humanity. That was the great Mirabai. In Gujarat there was a saint, in medieval saint poet called Gangasathi. She also spoke against the rituals, and she is also with pure spirituality. Many poems have been written, she is still relevant. There is another saint from Maharashtra in 13th century, Janabai. The Janabai was Namdev's disciple. She was in fact servant in the with Namdev's father. Namdev was a great saint of Maharashtra. Namdev, one of the four great saints, Namdev, Tukaram, Gyaneshwar, like those. So she wrote many poems in Marathi called Avangs, Janabai. Born from a very poor family, not high caste, and it rose to the status of saint. And in Namdev's book, the Janabai's poems are included. So that great honor, the saint decade, there have been great saints. By their own right, they were great devotees and they practiced spirituality, they practiced religion, they were high in the religion. So there is no question of whether women has right for spirituality or not. Everyone has right for the spirituality. They say the spiritual practice, there is no time or age for that. Whenever you feel like practicing spirituality, that is time. Oh, I'm now too old, 70 years old. Can I practice now? I've been living in the world. I didn't call God. I didn't pray. There's no time. At 70, at 75, whenever desire comes, you should begin. Earlier the better. It didn't happen, let that go. Now when it has come, arose in your mind that you should practice spirituality, you should start prayer, you should begin meditation. That is the time. For that's how everyone has the right for spirituality. There was another saint called Muktabai. In the Varkari tradition of in Maharashtra, and she wrote about 41 songs called Avangs. Those are all these verses they write in Maharashtra in the Vaishnavite tradition. In Tamil Nadu also there is a very famous saint called Akka Mahadevi. She was 12th century saint poet from Shimoga, from the Veera Shaiva Bhakti movement. Her verses are called Vachanas. Like Khana, we call Vachan. They are also in this Karnataka tradition we call Akka Mahadevi. She was a Shaivite devotee. Shiva was her teacher. For her, everything was Shiva. Like Mirabai was devotee of Krishna, she was devotee of Shiva. But they are all very well-known and famous women saints of India. Of course, there was Andal of Tamil Nadu. She was one of the 12 Alvars. The Alvars are the great devotee of Lord Vishnu, highest devotees of Lord Vishnu. 11 of them are men, but Andal are at par with with other men devotees. She composed hymns in Tamil. Life of Ambar, Andal's book are written on Andal. Andal is that great women saint from Tamil Nadu. So you see, from all over India, there have been many great saints. What to speak of Ma Sharada. Ma Sharada we consider as divine, but if you consider as the women saint, by her own right she was unlettered, she had not studied, married at age 5, but with Sri Ramakrishna, of course. And then with her, and from childhood she would be interested in meditation and serving the people and all saintly qualities. And after getting companionship of Sri Ramakrishna and guidance of Sri Ramakrishna, and also by her own right, she became such a great dynamo of spirituality that Sri Ramakrishna, as we are reading, said that you have to spread the message of hope and assurance and happiness to the people by your power. And that Holy Mother Sharada Devi has done the great. So this is the thing that we find everyone has the right to become spiritual or religious. Not only in India, but in other religions also there have been great women saints. Saint Teresa of Avila, we all know, and Saint Clara of Assisi, whose name is Saint Clare, we call. In Muslims also there have been great women saints, though in Islam often we hear the criticism or there is very male dominated and there are very few women have no right to, are not treated equally, they cannot go and pray with men and all that thing. But there are great saints in Islam also. One of them is Saint Rabia, who was a Muslim by her religion, but was a great saint of her own time and has reached the very highest of spiritual upliftment in her own self. Swami Vivekananda had one interview given on the women's right for religions and spiritual practices. It was published in Prabuddha Bharata, our English journal that is still continuing. It is published in 1898. So more than 100 years it is being published, 123 years now. 25 years we just completed. It started in 1896 by Swamiji. So in that, there is an interview beautifully done in that. Swamiji makes very many things clear about the women's right for spirituality. It was asked, how do you find the right of women for spiritual and religious practice? He said, the Aryan and Semitic ideals of women have always been diametrically opposed. Amongst the Semites, the presence of women is considered dangerous to devotion, and she may not perform any religious function. But according to Aryan, a man cannot perform a religious action without a wife. So that was the importance of women given for religious practices. Often people think that women were considered as obstacle for, they were not made part of the spiritual religious life and maybe obstacle for spiritual practice that might be thought. We often read in the gospel that Sri Ramakrishna always said, Kamini Kanchan, woman and gold, translated that. At first the Kamini Kanchan is not the woman and gold, something lust and lucre. Kanchan is the lucre, the greed, and Kamini is for the lust or desires. So for that, this is a term used in Bengal, Kamini Kanchan. So that was said, be careful about that. That's what Swamiji said. It is translated as woman and gold, somehow it got translated into that. So Swami Sri Ramakrishna never had any feeling of discrimination against women. He respected women more than he treated men. Once a few women came fasting, said women should not fast. When you give you trouble to yourself, I feel very pain. So that was Sri Ramakrishna's thing. He chose one woman as the guru. His deity Ishta was a female form of God. Everything for him, and he chose here as a Sarada Devi to spread the message of motherhood of God. So Sri Ramakrishna never discriminated women from men, but this is the thing what he wanted to say. Samsara is greed and desire for enjoyment. You should give up that, whether men or women. That Kamini Kanchan, because he spoke to women, but this Kamini Kanchan, the worldliness should be given up by men and women, both, who want to have spiritual practice, who want to progress spiritually. So that is the word Kamini Kanchan said, woman and gold, but we should not mistake that as saying something to womanhood. It is nothing said against womanhood. Sri Ramakrishna cannot say that because of his respect and feeling. He is Sri Ramakrishna's foremost disciple. Swami Vivekananda had great regard and hope in womanhood, and how he analyzed when one woman becomes spiritual, one woman becomes perfect, so many persons, progeny will become perfect. So it is woman who has to become the perfect person, more important. By her influence, so many will become. So Swami Vivekananda focused on the greatness of women and their power to really deliver the spirituality and teach her progeny and make the world better. If you want to make the world better, you have to focus on the real spiritual education of women. That was Swamiji's view. What Swamiji really wanted is it is asked in the question. Swamiji said, modern Hinduism, said Swami quietly, is largely Pauranika, that is post-Buddhistic in origin. Dayananda Saraswati pointed out that though a wife is absolutely necessary in the sacrifice of the domestic fire, which is a Vedic rite, she may not touch the Salagrama Shila or the household idol because the dates from the later period of Puranas. So what happened distinctly that the Vedic time equal. Later on, Pauranika time, women were, for protection, they were deprived of many rights, like do not touch Salagrama Shila. That one thought came because they were deprived from the right just for the protection's sake, because it happened during Pauranika time when the mythology started being said after Buddhistic era. That's what Swami Vivekananda is saying. But it was introduced, interpolated. That is not the real Aryan or Hindu or Vedic culture to see women as lesser than men. Men can do this and women cannot do that. So that is later on it happened about whether one can worship Salagrama Shila or not. Like that thing, it's very, Swamiji doesn't approve of that. When men can worship, definitely women. If it is God, how can it be separate for men and women? God is equal for all. That was Swamiji's view. Now the question asked was, are you then entirely satisfied with the position of women amongst us, Swamiji? That was a nice question in 1898. And Swamiji says, by no means, said the Swami. But our right of interference is limited entirely to giving education. Women must be put in a position to solve their own problems in their own way. No one can or ought to do this for them, and our Indian women are as capable of doing it as any in the world. Swamiji always view of that. Don't impose anything on any gender or anyone. Just give them power, increase their intellectual power and thinking power, and they will solve their own problems. Whether the widow marriage is good or not, whether child marriage is good or not. Why should men interfere in their life? Let them decide what to do and let them do what they feel right. That was Swamiji's opinion. Give them education, give them freedom from education. During Swamiji's time, even the women education was very little. And Swamiji had to really ask Nivedita to make a school for women to give them education. And when women are educated, they will learn how to deal with their problem. Men do not have to say anything about that. Don't interfere in that position. How do you account for the evil influence which you attribute to Buddhism? Swamiji said, it came only with the decay of faith in our own faith, and that Buddhism did that right. Said the Swami, every movement triumphs by dint of some unusual characteristic and when it falls, the point of pride becomes its chief element of weakness. The Lord Buddha, greatest of men, was a marvelous organizer and carried the world by this means. But his religion was the religion of a monastic order. It had therefore the evil effect of making the very robe of the monk honored. He also introduced for the first time the community life of religious houses and thereby necessarily made women inferior to men. Since the great abscesses could take no important step without the advice of certain abbots, it ensured its immediate object, the solidarity of the faith. You see, only its far-reaching effect are to be deplored. How faith in the Sangha became little hindrance to the growth of women or growth of the whole bigger household community, because they had to depend on the Sangha. Buddham Saranam Gacchami, Dhammam Saranam Gacchami, Sangham Saranam Gacchami. Though there were great monks who would give you advice, but total dependence on them on everything, Swamiji does not approve. For spiritual advice, fine. For other things, you have an intellect to think how to solve your problem. For everything, you don't have to be always guided. You have to develop your own thoughts. For even the monks, he said, you study yourself Sanskrit and try to understand the meaning as you understand. You don't have to depend on what other Bhasyakaras have said. You try to find the meaning yourself. That was Swamiji saying, and that's what he said. Great institution of a monastic order, but being totally dependent on that, so that became like a flaw and a cause of downfall of women during the Buddhist period. But sannyasa is recognized in the Vedas, says the questioner. Of course it is, but without making any distinction between men and women. Do you remember Yajnavalkya was questioned at the court of King Janaka? His principal examiner was Vachaknavi, the maiden orator, Brahmavadini, as the word of the day was. Like two shining arrows in the hand of the skilled archer, she says, are my questions. So that was what the Gargi had said to Yajnavalkya. So she was very confident of herself, what she is going to ask this great renowned saint. Not even, then he says, so maybe we're going to continue. Perhaps because I have seen how you, the question was, you have a wonderful way of revealing the glories of our past, Swamiji. Swamiji replies, perhaps because I have seen both sides of the world, said the Swami gently. And I know that the race that produced Sita, even if it only dreamt of her, has a reverence for woman that is unmatched on the earth. There is many a burden bound with legal tightness on the shoulders of Western women that is utterly unknown to ours. We have our wrongs and our exceptions certainly, but so have they. We must never forget that all over the globe, the general effort is to express love and tenderness and uprightness, and that national customs are only the nearest vehicles of this expression. With regard to the domestic virtues, I have no hesitation in saying that our Indian methods have in many ways the advantage over all others. Question asked, then have our women any problems at all, Swamiji? Of course, they have many and grave problems, but none that are not to be solved by that magic word, education. The true education, however, is not yet conceived amongst us. Swamiji had his own idea of what really education means. He defines, he says. And how would you define education? A good person asked. That Swamiji says, I never define anything. This very wonderful passage, very important. I never define anything, said the Swami, smiling. Still, it may be described, education may be described as a development of faculty, not an accumulation of words, or as a training of individuals to rightly and efficiently. So it is not accumulation of word, but a training of faculty to the individuals to will rightly and efficiently. That is the real purpose of education, to make the will stronger, independent, original thinking. If the education can do that, it is real education, but you accumulate the word, read some other's ideas and don't have your own thoughts, that is not the real education. So shall we bring to the need of India great, fearless women, women worthy to continue the traditions of Sangamitta, Leela, Ahalyabai and Mirabai, women fit to be mothers of heroes because they are pure and selfless, strong with the strength that comes of touching the feet of God. So that is the idea of Swamiji's womanhood, and Swamiji's saying the right of women for doing everything. Now the question was asked, so you have considered that there should be a religious element in education, Swamiji? I look upon religion as the innermost core of education, said the Swami solemnly. Mind. I do not mean my own or anyone else's opinion about religion. I think the teacher should take the pupil's starting point in this, as in other respects, and enable her to develop along her own line of least resistance. So this is the great onus on the teacher that Swamiji gives. He or she should be able to understand the situation and position and mental status of her or his students and raise from that situation, making the religious means the real beneficial thought about the spirituality, about the oneness, and put that into them. Swamiji continues, you should remember, said the Swami, that if religion exalts brahmacharya for woman, it does not exactly the same for man. Moreover, your question shows a certain confusion in your own mind. Hinduism indicates one duty, only one, for the human soul. It is to seek to realize the permanent amidst the evanescent. No one presumes to point out any one way in which this may be done. Marriage or non-marriage, good or evil, learning or ignorance, any of these is justified if it leads to the goal. In this respect lies the great contrast between it and Buddhism. For the latter's outstanding direction is to realize the impermanence of the external, which, broadly speaking, can only be done in one way. Do you recall the story of the young yogi in the Mahabharata who prided himself on his psychic powers by burning the bodies of a crow and crane by his intense will produced by anger? Do you remember what the young saint went into the town and found first a wife nursing her sick husband, and then the butcher Dharmavyadha, both of whom had obtained the enlightenment in the path of common faithfulness and duty? So that was Swamiji's ideal, that one should work, whatever profession, whether monk or householder, whether men or women, all have equal right. The goal has to be fixed to attain the knowledge of one that is present in the variety that seems as many. One to perceive the oneness of the reality among this ever-changing world. So it may be done by the practice of karma yoga, or by the practice of bhakti yoga, by devotion and prayer, or by dhyana or meditation, or by vichara, thinking that what is impermanent and what is permanent, or by jnana yoga. But that is the goal for anyone, and for that, according to the Swami Vivekananda, or this order, or according to Swami Vivekananda's vision, what that Vedic religion or Vedanta perceives, that human has equal right for everything as in other gender, including the spirituality. There is no less right, and that spiritual growth can happen by renunciation if she wants to become a nun, renounce the world, or through her service to her family members or society and the neighbors through karma yoga, or through her work in the office and performing her duty in a detached spirit without attachment, or through her prayer in her shrine or in the temple. So all those are valid. The goals for men and women both is not to become a monk or not, but to realize the truth of one reality, that is the soul or the real being of the same person, Atma, Brahma. That idea should be there, Aham Brahmasmi. That idea to be realized by any method, that is important, and that every woman of all over the world, in all societies, has the right to realize the ultimate truth. That can happen through various paths. Paths may be different, but goal should be that highest, that I want to realize the truth of my true self. Thank you very much.